Here. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's me again.
Hi there.
I'm going to give you guys another speech. This one is about culture shock and how people who are from another country can feel out of place coming to a new country. I chose to interview my ex-husband, Agenor da Silva. He was born in Brazil, and he has lived in Brazil, Italy, England, and the United States, and he's currently residing in Brazil again. The first time he left Brazil, he chose to go to Italy when he was very young. He was only 20-something years old. He didn't speak Italian, and he didn't know anyone there, and he had a very bad case of culture shock when he was there. He was very isolated. He was very sad. He felt very depressed, and he had a very hard time acclimating to his new environment and learning the language. He did eventually do better. He did eventually learn the language, get a job, and make some very good friends there. But until he got to that point, it was very hard, and he has told me that he actually considered killing himself at some point because he was so depressed about his living situation. What he does point out is that each country he visited helped him learn more about himself by opening himself to learning more about others and their cultures. So he takes that as a positive experience. I also have a PowerPoint that I printed out for you guys. It gives you some information about Brazil. The language is mainly Portuguese, and it's not Portuguese like Portugal Portuguese. This is South American Portuguese, so it's a little bit different. It's a very familial-based country. It's not unusual to see multi-generations living in each house, which was also very different for him when he lived in some other countries around the world. Everybody is spread out all over the place. One of the reasons he went to Italy the first time is because his father had suffered a stroke and he needed to help support his family. So he felt that that was a very good reason for going there and doing what he did. He then moved back to Brazil, back to his home country, sort of gathered his wits about him again, and chose to then go to England for a little while. Again, this was mostly to make money, to facilitate now taking care of a new child that he had, and he didn't know any English. So he went to London, and he got a job in the kitchen, and he went to night school to learn the language while he worked in the kitchen with other Brazilians. So it was a little bit less of a culture shock. And he felt that that was easier than the first time he had done it. So when he came back to Brazil again after that, he decided to come to the United States. And he again did that to help broaden his horizons, to make some money. He had the misfortune, though, of arriving in the United States on September 10th, 2001. And he ended up being stranded in California for 3 days, because as we all know, September 11th took place the next day. And culture shock was very, very, very real for him at that point, because he just couldn't imagine why he had chosen to come to this country that appeared to now be under attack. So he had a very, very difficult time when he first came here. He was stranded in a city that he knew no one. He had no ability to take care of himself there because he hadn't planned on being there for 3 days. And he actually ended up sleeping out on a street one of the nights because he had no way to do anything else. He did choose to come to America because he had friends and family that lived in Connecticut. So even though he was living in a new country, he very much isolated himself within a community of Brazilians and like-minded people and friends and family. And he did that for a number of years until he realized he was doing himself a disservice and his family a disservice by not branching out a little bit more and learning more about the country that he lived in. So he intentionally took positions and jobs outside of the Brazilian community to better integrate himself into America, which is how we invented it. The last culture shock that he sort of felt was the move to North Carolina. North Carolina, even though it was the same country, for him it was a world away. There was no one here that was Brazilian. There was no one here that spoke his language. And the isolation that he felt living in a home where there was no one coming to visit and talk and say was very real. And it eventually was one of the things that prompted him to go back to his home country, where he still resides. I do have a picture there of him, so you can see what that gentleman looks like that I took the time to talk to about all of this. Do you have any questions about culture shock or anything that we discussed? Or
sounds like his second experience was much less traumatic than his first experience. England sounds like it was a much easier transition for him. So he must have learned something that first time when he moved to Italy. So good for him.
He did, and I think here there are these stages of culture shock, which is this initial euphoria where you're in a new place and you're very excited and it's all very glitzy and glamour. The second, which is this irritation and hostility, because all these people are different from you fundamentally, and you feel out of place, even if you speak the same language. Where he felt sort of in America, because he spoke English, the culture was extremely different from anything he experienced before. And this gradual adjustment, which is this acclimation to your home environment, which again, he demonstrated very well, I think, in America, where he actively chose to step out of the Brazilian community and step into the American culture to acclimate and to assimilate into the chosen place he had to live. And the adaptation, which is, again, taking that then and bringing it back to Brazil even, where he lives now, and sort of westernizing or bringing a westernized feeling to his friends and family there. How'd I do that time?
That's good.
Oh, thank you.
It was,
I wasn't flapping around as much.
not, you weren't flat.
I had something to hold on to.
Yes.
I like that.